Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Middle of Culture. I'm one of your hosts, Eden.
And I'm your other host, Peter.
Hey, Peter. How you been?
I've been hanging in there. How about yourself?
Also, trying to just, stay alive in this hot, hot summer.
See, and that is really interesting because for us, it has actually been pretty cool. So, for example, yesterday, the 21st of June, the first official day of summer, it was 37 degrees in the morning. And
What?
Yeah. It got warmer today. It got up to the high 70s, but we have had very few days in the 80s. And if you look at the mountains that are kind of around the valley we're in, there are still fairly good-sized patches of snow at the very, very top, which is very unusual. It's usually, we're usually halfway to complete brown by now, and things are still fairly green, and there's still some snow at the top. So I've been loving it for us, but I have heard that it is hella hot elsewhere.
Yeah, it's been pretty toasty here. It's like, it's one of those times where you're like, oh, so the air conditioner is just going to basically be on all day, huh? It's one of those kind of days.
Yeah, that's no fun.
No, it's not fun at all. But it's nice-ish outside right now. It's late enough. And so my partner is outside in the yard. And when she inevitably comes in, my dogs are going to go crazy. I'm sure Peter will cut it from the pod. But they'll get so excited and so jealous that she was outside and they were not. I mean, to be fair,
right?
They're murderers. I had to dispose of 3 separate dead bunnies today that they found in the yard and killed.
Oh, dear.
So I'm annoyed with them.
Our dog does not kill that we have seen. The cat, however, is regularly presenting us with birds for the most part, because I think he may have done most of the mice if there were any. Every once in a while we'll find a mouse, but he has presented us in the garage at least 4 separate times with birds, sometimes as big as a big robin that he went to town on.
That's pretty wild. The wildest. My dog Lily loves to also present. Like the other dogs, if Liza catches something, she eats it. It's gone. But if Lily catches it, she's like, "Aren't you so proud of me? Look at what I did for you. I'm going to drop this at your feet. Aren't you so proud of me?" And it's hard not to be a little proud of her.
Right. I mean, she's just doing what she thinks she should.
Even so. My favorite thing she ever did, though, not favorite because it was still brutal, but the most amazing murder she's ever done is there was a bird that was swooping down. With us, it's usually rodents. It's usually voles or rabbits more than anything else. It's usually rabbits because there's lots of rabbits in our neighborhood. And they're stupid enough to, have their bunnies in my yard. And then my dogs find it, and they're like, oh, this is like if I found just, a secret supply of Snickers somewhere in the house if you were a human.
Right.
And so they just go to town on them like they're little Snickers bars. But one time, there was this bird flying down, and it, kind of swooped, and Lily, leapt into the air, caught it in midair, and then, spun and landed. And it was the wildest thing I had ever seen. And then, of course, she brought it to me so proud of herself. And I was like, thanks.
Sure.
Thanks so much for this.
That's sweet.
But it is what it is. So you been up to anything fun the last couple of weeks? I know you said you've been busy.
Yeah, things have been busy. But I have gotten into a few things. I haven't really read much. I have been watching... Parks and Recreation is that is comfort food for me. I've watched it before, of course, and so honestly, when I'm feeling stressed, if I do have a spare bit of time, I'll watch an episode or two of Parks and Rec because it makes me laugh. It's enjoyable, and so definitely watch some of that. But a couple other things, on the music front, I continue to be somewhat irrationally obsessed with the most two recent albums from Cattle Decapitation. And so the other night I had, it wasn't a bad day in the office. It was just incredibly busy. And, I was double and triple booked all the time and basically like did not really sit down and do anything from 8 o'clock in the morning till about 6 at night when I finally wrapped up notes and stuff. I think it was actually 6:30.
Jeez.
And, I got home and I just said to my wife, I said, hey, I need some music therapy. And so I put in some headphones and broke out one of my stupid little digital audio players with my high-res lossless music files on it and fired up Cattle Decapitation. And thoroughly have been enjoying that. I don't know that I could articulate why their music is clicking with me so much right now. It could be, there's a chance, just saying, there's a chance that some of it stems from the fact that lyrically, they tend to espouse a fairly potent misanthropy for humanity sort of as a whole. And excuse me, not misanthropy, basically a hatred of humanity.
Yeah, it's misanthropy.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought, and then all of a sudden it didn't sound right. So thank you. My brain anyway, that's where I've been. So, I'm sitting here going, yeah, you know what? Maybe they're not wrong. Maybe there are too many people on this planet. So, I've been really enjoying that, listening to them an awful lot. And then in terms of movies, we'll talk about one that I've seen tonight. But, 2 weeks ago, I watched Into the Spider-Verse. We talked about it. Friday night, everybody was gone. I was home alone. And I decided it was time to finally watch the Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie. And I enjoyed it. I think that it was better than it perhaps had any right to be. It's a fun show, and it's got some heart to it. And again, I think that Chris Pine puts in an excellent performance. He's a ton of fun to watch.
But when does he not?
Right. I mean, that's the thing.
There's a reason he's the best Chris.
I think I would not argue with you. So I enjoyed that. My only disappointment in that is, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, Into the Spider-Verse is a very special movie. And as you're watching it, you just get this feeling that you're watching something special. Honor Amongst Thieves is not a special movie. It is a very competently well done movie in the Dungeons & Dragons world that I thought they did a fantastic job of making it a fun, enjoyable fantasy movie for people who know nothing about Dungeons & Dragons. And then for people who know more about D&D, there are just little Easter eggs all over the place, just all throughout. So it kind of works, I think, really effectively on two levels. But it's not a special movie in the way that Into the Spider-Verse was. So I was feeling a little let down until I kind of got over that. And then the final thing I'll mention is up until about Monday, because again, this week has been kind of crazy and I've had stuff after work and everything. But I've been putting a lot of time into Diablo 4, and I am really, really enjoying Diablo 4.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Tell me about why you're enjoying it.
Well, I think the story is as much as there is a story, I think it's fairly interesting. I actually, as a villain, I am finding Lilith one of the more interesting and compelling villains in Diablo games. I think she's interesting, and so I'm enjoying that. And just, the Diablo Skinner box is something that we've talked about before, but well aware of, well accustomed to, and I'm enjoying it. I like what they're doing a little different. I'm enjoying the skill tree and being able to kind of add passive skills and do a whole bunch of different things that, I'm getting abilities that are kind of automatically firing off randomly based on probably little RNG rolls that are happening in the background and such, but it's good. I'm really enjoying it. I'm not I don't know. I was on just kind of browsing YouTube the other day, and of course the YouTube algorithm throws up here's the best, hurry and farm this dungeon before Blizzard nerfs it. And I was getting ready to go click on it, and then I realized, no. At one point in Diablo 3, I started to fall down the rabbit hole of like optimizing a build and, farming for specific loot and this kind of stuff. And it didn't take very long until it was starting to feel like work and not like fun for me. And so I stopped myself before I started doing that and thought, you know what? No, right now I'm just playing to have fun. I don't need to optimize every little thing currently. If I want to do that at some point, cool. But right now, no, I'm just going to play it. So.
Well, I'm glad you're having fun with it.
Yeah. So what about you?
Yeah, I have been kind of busy too, but I've checked out a few things. In terms of reading, I have been reading a comic series called Magical Girl Spec Ops Asuka, and that's a fucked up comic book, man.
That's a very fascinating name.
Well, here's the deal. This is a comic that literally advertises on the cover that it has a military advisor for the comic about magical girls.
Sure.
So you're getting something different than Sailor Moon when it says on the cover that Naoya Tamura is the military advisor for this comic book. But basically, like, I have engaged in a lot of magical girl media. Some of it I really, really like. Some of it I like less of. But one of my all-time favorite comics, Magical Knight Rayearth, is a magical girl comic. It also has mechs in it, which is what makes it so magical to me. Is what if you combine Sailor Moon with Gundam and then you get Magical Knight Rayearth?
There you go.
It's very good. But there's been a lot of talk. There's this one specific magical girl series that came out in the late 2000s, early 2010s called Madoka Magica. It's basically the name of it. And like, when it came out, everyone was like, oh man, this is like the like twisted magical girl series. This shows how like weird and twisted magical girls could get. And I watched it after having like supped at the feast table of what like the traditional magical girl is. Read and watched Sailor Moon. Read and watched Cardcaptor Sakura. Read all of Phantom Thief Jean. Read all of Tokyo Mew Mew. And then I watched Madoka, and everyone was like, oh, this is like dark and twisted. And I was like, no, it's not. It's just a magical girl show. It's not. It's not dark and twisted. You just never watched Sailor Moon, so you don't know how fucked up Sailor Moon can get sometimes. Because you're a misogynist. And that's usually what it comes down to. It's usually dudes who are like, this one's the cool one because it's twisted. And it's like, Sailor Moon is so much more fucked up than Madoka could ever be. And you don't know because that's a show for girls. But the fact remains. Magical Girl Spec Ops Asuka, that is the level of fucked up that everyone seemed to promise that Madoka was. This is a messed up comic book. It is about what if magical girls became agents of the state and were part of spec ops organizations and used their magical powers to do things like kill terrorists and catch drug dealers and stop military incursions. And it's really messed up. I don't know why I'm still reading it, but I am still reading it. I don't know if I'm enjoying it, but I am still reading it. I'm 7 volumes in. There's 14 volumes total. I'll probably have it all read by next time, but like, It's a pretty messed up book. It's really prurient. It's extremely violent. It is overly horny. It is just, it like revels in violence in a way that's really uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
But I'm still reading it, so there must be something there, because I still keep reading it. I haven't just said, why am I reading this, and stopped. I'm saying, why am I reading this, and picking up the next volume.
All right.
So we'll see what happens. I'll report back and see what happens by the end. It's a pretty messed up comic. In terms of films, I went and saw the new Transformers movie, Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, and
how was that?
You were a little too old to be into Beast Wars, right?
I was. It had come after I had left the Transformer station.
Yeah, I mean, it was like you were 16, 17 when Beast Wars was coming out, so like you were a little too old for that. I was 10 or 11, so I was right there for Beast Wars, and I really liked Beast Wars growing up. I watched a lot of it. I thought it was really cool. So I was really excited at the prospect of getting some of my, Maximal friends in this Transformers movie.
Sure.
What I will say about Rise of the Beasts is that this is a perfectly 3 out of 5 movie.
Okay.
It is a perfect 3 out of 5 movie where it ain't that good, but it's perfectly watchable.
Sure.
The effects were pretty fun. It had a good selection of robots. I liked the main characters in a way that the only other movie where I liked the main humans was the Bumblebee movie. Because I did not... Guess who doesn't care about Sam Witwicky or Cade, whatever Mark Wahlberg's last name is? I don't care about those people. So it was hard to give a shit about those movies because I only cared about the robots who were also poorly characterized. In this one, it's okay if the robots are poorly characterized because there are humans that are kind of likable and that you like to see on screen and that you're interested to see what happens to them.
Nice.
But perhaps most importantly, my girl RC got lines in this one.
Okay.
She's my favorite Transformer of all time, RC. The standout, steals the show in the Transformers 1986 animated movie, which still remains the best Transformers movie, which is sad because it's not very good, but it does have Weird Al singing Dare to Be Stupid playing one of the junk cons. So
yes, it does.
That automatically makes it better than most movies because Weird Al is in it. But so is RC, and she steals the show. And then they've made a series of these live action ones where RC made an appearance on screen in Revenge of the Fallen, but didn't say a word.
Okay.
And RC made an appearance on screen at the beginning of Bumblebee when they were still on Cybertron, looking incredible. The design from Bumblebee, great. I don't think she said a line. I don't think she has a line in the film. She's just like, when it comes to the Transformers toy line, that first 10 minutes of Bumblebee when they're on Cybertron was like the money printing factory because all they did was make toys of every single one of those robots that doesn't even have a line, but they look dope as hell because the design work is really good in Bumblebee. And it's just a money printer. That's all that was, that first 10 minutes of that movie.
Okay.
But she's in this movie and she has lines and she's essentially the second in command of the Autobots. So that was enough for me to be like, hey, my girl RC is here. She got the one F-bomb in the movie. So that's a win right there. So if you like the Transformers, go see it. But probably just wait till it's on streaming and watch it then. But it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it.
Good. Yeah, I think I'm going to be on the stream it and watch it then.
I think that makes sense. That was one that when I said, hey, Cassie, I want to go see Transformers. And she was like, I hope you want to go see that one alone. And I said, I do. I'll go see that one alone. So I did. And then lastly, in games, I'll mention very quickly, I did do the DLC for Forspoken, which I mentioned last episode. I really enjoyed that game. I did the DLC. It's very short. It was like 3 hours, but it was pretty fun. It was worth my $10 or however much it was. It was thankfully not very expensive because it was not very big. Okay. But I had a fun time with it, and I really think that is a great game. My biggest disappointment is that the DLC ends with a great sequel hook for a game that is literally never going to get a sequel. There is no world where Forspoken gets a sequel because it sold like dog shit and they closed the studio.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, but it is what it is. I really enjoyed it. We'll literally never get any payoff for all of that setup in the first game, but it is what it is. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I played it. But most importantly, Peter, do you see what date it is that we're recording today?
Oh, I do. In fact, I may have already said something to my wife about, I'll be curious to see how long Eden talks about.
It's the 1st of Clivesmas, everyone. It's Clive Advent. We're here. It's Final Fantasy 16 release day, babies. And I took off work, so I have just been playing all day. Other than we went to dinner with a friend, and I'm recording this podcast. I literally have my PlayStation paused mid cutscene, and as soon as we're done recording and I upload the file, I'm heading back into the Final Fantasy 16 trenches for God only knows how long, till I'm too tired and I have to go to bed again because I took tomorrow off work too.
Nice.
Here's the thing. I'm really enjoying it. It's really good so far. I'm very curious to see how I'll feel about it when it's all said and done. Sure. I don't think the reviews I've seen are saying 30, 40 hours if you just like main quest it, and like 50, 60 if you do side quests. I'm doing side quests, so I still got a lot to go because I've only been playing today. So I'm very curious to see how I feel about it. But so far, it's really good. It's extremely good. The combat is all action now. Like it is, there's no turn-based bits to it anymore. Okay. Which is a little divisive. A lot of people are like, well, how is this Final Fantasy if it's not turn-based? And to those people, I say, Bravely Default 2 and Octopath Traveler are right there waiting for you. Square is still putting those games out. They just don't have the name Final Fantasy anymore. Yeah. And maybe they should, and maybe they would sell better if they called it like Final Fantasy Side Story, Octopath Traveler. They didn't. I don't know why they didn't. They probably should have. But they're there. You are being well-fed, turn-based RPG lovers. Oh, yeah. This one's for the sickos who are like, you know what's cool? Devil May Cry. What if you made Devil May Cry 40 hours long and put it in a Final Fantasy game? Because that's what this game is. This is Devil May Cry, but Final Fantasy. So it's really, like, the action is really, really exciting. And it has a very interesting way of doing... I don't know if I love it, but I understand where they were coming from. The way of doing accessibility is you are given a series of rings. Like, you can equip up to 3 accessories at a time. And you're given a series of rings that are special accessibility rings. And if you equip them, they'll make the game easier for you. It does mean that then you can't like equip hey, this makes my firepower 8% stronger. But you can equip a ring that says, hey, instead of pushing 4 buttons for this combat, what if I just push the 1 and the game says, what's the best thing to do right now? I'll do that for you. And then it looks like you know what you're doing and good at playing an action game when you're not good at playing action games, but you sure look like it, and you're sure having fun mashing that square button over and over and over again. And, what's this other ring? The other ring makes it so that you don't have to command your companion, the dog Torgal. You don't have to command Torgal to do stuff. He just does it automatically. Great. So, like, I have equipped these different rings that have made it a lot easier to play the game, because I can see if you were playing at a higher difficulty and you didn't equip the rings, this could be, like, really chunky, like I say, Devil May Cry style combat, where, like, you got to pay a lot of attention to dodges and parries, and you got to do a lot of movement, and it's really fast-paced. Or you can put it on story mode, put a couple of these really easy rings on, mash square, and occasionally dodge, and have the time of your life. And that's how I'm playing it. I'm having a great time. A lot of the, like, pre-press was like, oh, this is like Game of Thrones. And here's the thing.
I've seen that in a couple things I've read in passing.
I see the influence of Game of Thrones on it, but do you know what I think is a bigger influence on it that nobody's talking about?
What's that?
If I was going to give this game a title, I would say Dragon Age, but what if the combat didn't suck ass?
Oh, okay.
Because I see a lot of the DNA of Dragon Age in this. And but it's fun to play in a way that especially Dragon Age Origins is simply not a fun video game to play because that is dog shit combat.
Yeah, it's incredibly clunky and just it punishes you for trying to play it in any way other than the stop, pause, issue command, issue command, issue command, issue command, unpause, pause immediately. It's
And if I wanted to play that, I'd go play one of those shitty CRPGs like Pathfinder Kingmaker or some crap like that. Guess what? I just want to mash the buttons, guys. And eventually, Dragon Age Inquisition is okay. It's not terrible. It's okay. It's not BioWare's best combat because that's Anthem. But it's okay. But this is really good combat. But I also see a lot of the DNA of Dragon Age and Game of Thrones, but also some Final Fantasy in there. And I'm very curious to see where it goes. I'm having a blast. So it's pretty fun so far. I'm having a lot of fun.
Nice.
So Merry Clivesmas to everyone.
Sweet.
All right, so we should probably move on to the main event. Those of you who listened to last episode know what the main event is. It's time to talk about a current movie. We are going to be talking about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the 2023 sequel to the 2028 film Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. If you're curious on our thoughts of Into the Spider-Verse, we talked about them at length 2 weeks ago. So go check out the last episode, because this episode we're talking about Across the Spider-Verse.
Hell yeah, we are.
Because this is a fresh one, we'll do some impressions, spoiler-free section at the front, and then we'll get into the spoiler zone where we talk about where we do what we normally do, talk about the plot and get into the nitty-gritty of it. But before we do that, how did you feel about this movie when you saw it, Peter?
I've been thinking for almost 2 weeks how I was going to describe this. There's no simple, succinct way for me to get there. So I'm going to not waste time trying to be. I thought it was a really, really good movie.
Yes.
Visually, it is incredible. Just incredible. Think of all the cool things that were done Into the Spider-Verse and just times them by 100. Almost literally. I mean, there are so many just fascinating things happening on the screen that it is too much to take in a single viewing. So I'm very much looking forward to watching it again, if for no other reason than just visually.
Yeah.
I think that the story is really cool, and my only complaint, and it's not really a complaint, it's just a statement of fact, is that this clearly is part one of a bigger story.
I'll say it's a minor complaint from me that's what it is.
Yeah, and like I say, that's my only complaint because, and again, only because Into the Spider-Verse is such a delightfully told, well thought out and contained story unto itself, with hints at obviously a much bigger Spider-Verse, but that it is such a satisfying piece of art itself that you feel satisfied when it's done. And this one does a great job of making you feel super excited for what's coming next, but you don't get that satisfying, oh, I just watched a great complete story. This is wow, I'm super hyped to finish this story.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. I think I have some complaints with the pacing, but that is so clearly tied up with the fact that this movie literally ends with a text box that says "to be continued" on it. So This is even more of this is a first part of a two-part film than Avengers Infinity War or The Matrix Reloaded, or I was going to say, or Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 1, but I didn't watch that shit. I have no idea what happens at the end of that stupid movie because fuck Harry Potter and fuck J.K. Rowling. But I have no idea what happens at the end of that movie because I refuse and will never see it. But this is so...
I don't know.
This is so clearly the first half and a whole lot of setup for what I hope is some really potent payoff in March when the third part comes out. But I did leave the cinema feeling a little disappointed that I didn't get much resolution. I got a lot of promise, but I didn't get a lot of resolution. So as a story, I feel like that is a weakness to it, even though I really enjoyed my time with it. And like you said, the way that it turns the animation tricks and funky design choices that they made in the first one, they really crank it to 11 with this one. Ultimately, when it finished, I was just like, damn, I gotta wait till March? That sucks. This really sucks. But I'm glad I've seen it. And I think that
heck yeah.
if they hit the landing, which I have no reason to not think that they'll hit the landing because the first one was so good and this one sets things up in a really interesting way. If they hit the landing, it's going to be a really special trilogy all told. Just like we talked about last week, it's a really special first movie. And I'm really hopeful that they hit the ground running with the third one. And it's really something special.
Yeah, I agree.
So, if you haven't seen it yet and you want to and you don't want to hear us spoil it, then thanks for listening. Come back and listen after you've seen the movie. But if you have seen it, or if you are not eager to see it and don't care if you get spoiled, let's talk a little bit about what happens in this movie. Because a lot happens in it. It's the longest American animated film ever made.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
It is 140 minutes, and there's never been an animated film made by an American studio that is that long. So that is interesting to know. Only Japanese studios and like some Hungarian movie called The Tragedy of Man, which, okay, but it's like just that. So it's very long, and it does a lot of work. But I do think it's really interesting how it really feels like, even though this is a half of a movie, it also has two halves to it. Because the first half of it, before Miles goes on his adventures, it feels like a very different movie than what we get in the back half of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, here's what happens. First off, it starts with a framing story about Gwen. We spend the first 15-20 minutes of the movie with Gwen on Gwen's Earth. As we know at the end of Into the Spider-Verse, everyone went back to their home dimensions. Gwen is back in her home dimension. She still cuts everyone off. It just seems like a really closed off, really troubled person. Her dad tries to cross that divide. Like, her mom is dead. It's just her and her dad. Her dad kind of tries to cross that divide, but doesn't really know how because he doesn't know what she's going through because he's a cop who's specifically trying to catch Spider-Woman for killing the kid of his best friends, Ben and May Parker. So she obviously can't tell him, hey, Dad, I'm Spider-Woman. Remember how you are hunting me for... You think I killed Peter Parker, but I didn't. Eventually, there's a problem at the Guggenheim. She goes to the Guggenheim, and there is this weird Italian Renaissance themed vulture there who looks like a Da Vinci drawing instead of looking like anything else in Gwen's extremely fluorescent world.
Well, and very painterly. It very much has a watercolor vibe to it, even to the point that at the end, during without jumping too far ahead, but between a scene between her and her dad, the backgrounds are running. They look like the water paint is like the watercolors are running. And so it's a gorgeous aesthetic that
Earth 65. Yeah, Earth 65, Gwen Stacy's planet, is incredible looking and evokes, I mean, I said it last time, and this is even more true this time, it evokes Rico Renzi's art from the Spider-Woman comic so well, because that is how that art was in that book, and this just captures it perfectly, and it's really incredible to look at. But again, then all of a sudden there's a Da Vinci sketch in the middle of this watercolor world, which is weird, and she's trying to figure out what's happening when two other spider people show up. Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, and Jess Drew, Spider-Woman. a different Spider-Woman, obviously, because she is an extremely pregnant black woman riding a motorcycle, as opposed to Gwen Stacy. They are able to subdue the Vulture. Gwen reveals her identity to her dad. He attempts to arrest her, so she goes on the lam, is able to find Miguel and Jess before they go through one of those, what looks to be a formalized version of the weird portals they were going through in the first movie, and is admitted to the Spider Society by them. Then we cut to Miles. It's been a year and a half since the events of the first movie, so Miles has been trying to adapt to being Spider-Man, doing his chores, staying up to date on his schoolwork, talking to his mom and dad while still being a hero. He's having some trouble with it, which, again, fair. I think that would be really hard.
Sure, definitely.
He encounters someone who calls himself the Spot, who is this weird white creature who has spots all over him, and he can basically open portals that go from one to the other all over the place. And hilarity ensues because of the Spot's weird powers. He eventually is able to try to capture Spot. The Spot blames him specifically because he was an Alchemax scientist who was at the destruction of the Collider, and that's what caused him to have these weird powers. And he was the one you find out he was the one that basically transported a spider from another dimension, and that is the spider that bit Miles. And then the Spot transports himself into the void, trying to use the Alchemax thing. Miles is able to shut it down, has a heart-to-heart with his dad, tries to make it to his dad's a promotion party, and just is generally having trouble getting it all together. His parents are mad at him. They're having the stern parent talks with him. He's trying to, keep his secret identity a secret, but still be there for his parents, but still do what he feels like he needs to do. But also he's a 16-year-old kid, and he just wants to be a 16-year-old kid. And about that time is when Gwen shows up. And Gwen is like, hey, Miles. It turns out Gwen has been sent there by the Spider Society to track the Spot. And she was explicitly told not to talk to Miles. But she couldn't help herself, because she still cares about her friend Miles Morales. And so they meet up. Miles basically follows Gwen to where she traces the Spot and follows her through the portal to Mumbattan, which is Mumbai, Manhattan, essentially, from a different universe where they meet Spider-Man India, which is Pavitr Prabhakar, who is this just happy-go-lucky kid who is just super happy to be Spider-Man, and his life seems all together. I love Spider-Man India. He's just so chipper.
Oh, he's great. He's great. I love and here we have traffic. And here we see more traffic. And over here is traffic.
Yes, it's very funny. The Spot is there to basically try to turn on an Alchemax Collider in Pavitr's world. And he's able to do so. He's able to enter it. They're able to shut it down. But the spider collapses. While this is happening, Miles has a vision that's shared with the Spot of Miles's dad dying at the Spot's hand, like the Spot killing Miles's dad. And then he goes through the portal. The Collider collapses. Miles saves Spider-Man India's girlfriend's father, who is a police captain. But then, everything starts falling apart because of what we come to find out is the disruption of a so-called canon event. Because, we'll find out why in a second. A bunch of other Spider Society people show up. Oh, while this is happening, we also meet Spider-Punk, Hobie Brown, who has also become friends with Gwen, and is, I think, the scene stealer of every scene he is in.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I think that Hobie is an incredible character. I think he is incredibly acted. And it's one of those things where, when you're first watching it, you're like, okay, this is some, disaffected kid playing at being an anarchist. And then by the end of the movie, you realize what he was doing the whole movie. And you're like, oh, no, he actually rules. He's actually really, really cool. But anyway, he's Spider-Punk. He is this punk rock Spider-Man who just seems so much cooler than everyone else because he is. So because of this canon event happening, a bunch of spider people like transport in and are trying to contain it, and they take Miles to Earth 928, which is where Spider-Man 2099 is originally from, and where he has established the Spider Society. While they're there, they run into Peter B. Parker, who just happens to be bringing along his infant daughter, Mayday. So good for him and MJ. They worked it out. They got a kid. It's super cute. But Miguel explains that all of these spider people have canon events that have to happen in the life of a spider person, such as the death of a family member or a police captain close to Spider-Man, and that if you stray from those events, it threatens the multiverse. It threatens the reality that they are from, and that might spin out into other universes. So Miles, by saving Pavitor's girlfriend's dad, who was a cop, from dying, has disrupted the canon. And so now something is happening to Spider-Man India's planet. Like, it is unraveling, essentially. Because you have to... Every Spider-Man has to have a police captain who they care about who dies. And, you know, to be fair, this goes back to the original Spider-Man comics when Gwen Stacy's dad dies.
Yep.
That's a thing that happens. And that's a thing that happened to the original Spider-Man. That was another one of his, like... His three defining deaths in those early Spider-Man comics are obviously Uncle Ben, Captain Stacy, and then Gwen herself. And, like, those three events are, like, part of who make Peter Parker who he is in the 60s, which carries on to this day. So Miles, by stopping that for Pavitor, is now unraveling that dimension. So Miles realizes that his dad is becoming captain. He had this vision of the Spot murdering his dad. This is the canon event in his story, but he knows it's coming. So he knows he needs to stop it. Miguel tries to imprison Miles to prevent him from saving his dad. But Hobie, Spider-Punk, helps Miles break out before he tosses his watch and says, "I'm out, bye," and disappears. All of the spider people are put on alert and sent to chase Miles. And this includes Gwen and Peter B., who get in on the chase, betraying their friend in the name of protecting the canon. Which, this is a wild scene. It is maybe too long, but this is when, like, shit really starts to hit the fan. As Miles is trying to escape from these thousands upon thousands of spider people that are chasing him all over. He is eventually able, like, Miguel corners him and tells him that he was never supposed to become a Spider-Man. His world had his Spider-Man. It was the Spider-Man we saw in the first movie, played by Chris Pine. But because that spider got transported from Earth 42 to Earth 1610 and bit him, Earth 42's planet doesn't have a Spider-Man. And that is why Earth 1610's original Spider-Man died. So he gives Miles the guilt of, because you got bit by this spider, your Spider-Man had to die. So his blood is on your hands. And which is a shitty thing to do, Miguel. Come on.
Oh yeah, totally.
But Miles, being Miles, is like, no. He manages to escape all these thousands of spider people who are chasing him, makes it back to the base, and with the help of Spider Bite, who is this digital spider person from another dimension who, like, basically has a digital avatar there, returns to his home dimension. He thinks. Gwen also goes home after this, reconciles with her father, who says, "I'm not going to be a police captain anymore." And so she realizes maybe the canon is malleable, because if he's not a police captain anymore, then he doesn't have to be the police captain that dies. Like, she had written her father off, which is why she joined the Spider Society and run away, because she was like, he's gonna die, so I just have to close that off now. But now she's realized it doesn't have to be that way. And he hands her one of the teleportation watches, but this is an ad hoc one that Hobie dropped by and stopped by and dropped off for her. Miles, in the meanwhile, returns to his apartment, reveals to his mother that he's Spider-Man. His mom is like, haha, funny costume. And he realizes he's not on his home Earth. He's on Earth 42, the world where the spider came from, where he was, not his own. Because the thing read his DNA and read the Earth 42 DNA instead of the Earth 1610 DNA. So he has come to a world where his dad is dead, Uncle Aaron is alive, and the movie ends with you finding out, in this world, Miles is the Prowler. And then the movie ends with the Spot attacking Earth 1610, Miles' home dimension, Gwen assembling a team of renegade spider people with all the hits. We got Peter B feeling guilty for what he did. We've got Pav-Eater. We've got Hobie. We've got Margot, Spider-Bite. And we got our friends who we didn't see from the first movie. Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, and Spider-Ham are all back. And this is our team of renegade spiders who are going to go save Miles and help save the day. And that is where the movie ends.
Yep.
So, any specific things you want to shout out about this movie that you thought were great, or things that didn't work for you, or things that you are hoping they follow up on in the sequel?
Sure. So, as a whole, again, I think we kind of talked about it. So, I'm just going to kind of hit specific scenes that stuck out at me.
Please do.
One of the scenes I really, really enjoyed is I love when the Spot, so Miles captures the Spot, webs him up a bunch, thinks he's got him, and he's got him taken care of. Spot gets free. He's chasing him down. His dad's chasing him down. And there's just this great scene of Miles talking to his dad at this construction site. I think it was the wreck of the previous Alchemax. And just this really great interaction that is sort of like that little scene we caught at the end of Into the Spider-Verse where, you know, Miles is talking with his deeper voice and stuff. And we get some more of that, but there's a real, you know, you see these two starting to understand each other without realizing that they're understanding and talking to each other.
Yeah.
And so I liked that scene a lot. I thought that it was very effective at, again, helping us better understand the relationship between these two human beings.
Yeah. And just how hard it is. Like, how do you cross that divide between a father and a son anyway? But, like, it's also complicated by, you know, one's a cop and one's a vigilante.
Yeah. Again, great scene that really I thought was very effective. Another scene I really like is when Gwen comes and finds him and the two of them are talking. And they're way up on this skyscraper on this like kind of ledge with almost a gargoyle type thing. And Gwen kind of walks out and then webs and flips upside down and sits on the underside of this gargoyle. And Miles comes and joins her there. And it's just this really neat visual thing where they're hanging upside down looking at the city, and the camera, for lack of a better term, is kind of shifting back and forth between, you know, 1 minute you're like, it feels like everything, like they're sitting on the ground, and then all of a sudden you realize, no, her hair is like hanging up, and then it's changing perspectives. And they're having a talk, and Gwen is, you know, she's dealing with some stuff.
She is.
I think, to me, the way, again, so many smart things that they've done in these movies where they're taking advantage of the medium to enhance the storytelling. And just that kind of slightly disoriented feeling that you get as it keeps changing perspective, and it feels like they're upside down, but then they're right side up, but then they're upside down, and the world's right side up, and then the world's, you know, flipping back and forth. It creates just a little bit of tension in you just as you're watching it that helps to better convey the tension that Gwen is feeling in her. Yeah.
Yeah, the upside down bit really calls back to that scene that's so elegiac in that first movie where Miles is falling upwards. And that's the same sort of thing, but now we're dealing with the tension of like having this like kind of deep conversation where these two friends are reconnecting, and like both of them are dealing with a lot of shit right now, but they're like trying to connect to each other. But you are still given that upside down perspective because they're spider people. They're hanging upside down.
Yeah. I liked the interactions between Miles and Gwen and Miles' parents.
Here's the thing.
Felt Miles' mom had a lot bigger role.
I was just going to say that exact same thing.
Yeah, she's a lot stronger character, and I really, really appreciated that they brought her in more so that, again, you understand, in the first movie, it seems to be so much the relationship between Miles and his dad. And that is still a central and key relationship to both the story and obviously to Miles. But we get a lot more of his mom in this one, and we understand her relationship and her role that she plays as an essential person in his life. And I really, really loved that. And I thought that, again, some of those scenes with Miles and Gwen and his dad and his mom, like, she really shines in some of those scenes.
She's really incredible. And they do such fun things. Again, the things you get out of this movie that you just don't get from other movies. When his parents are at the school having that interview with the lady who works at the school, and Miles is supposed to be there, but he's busy fighting the spot. And then he shows up and he's late, and his mom is mad at him, and she's he's ignoring her or something, and she snaps her fingers at him. And a little Puerto Rican flag comes out of her fingers as she snaps her fingers at him.
Yep.
That's the sort of stuff you can do in an animated movie that you just can't do in live action. And it works so well as she's talking to him in Spanish really fast and mijo, ¿qué estás haciendo? Pa, 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 and you see these little Puerto Rican flags popping out of her fingers. It's really great. And yeah. I love how much they made her a character this time. In the first one, she was there, but not really. She had a few lines, but like you said, it's about Miles and Jeff. But this one is about Miles and his parents. And the way that there's tension there where they are not sure how to react to him and what is the right thing to do with him because they've never raised a kid before. They don't know what they're doing. And they might have different ideas on what to do in any given situation. So one of them is you're grounded, and the other one's nah. And the other one's no, you're grounded for 2 months now because your mom didn't agree that you were grounded. Things like that I'm sure come when you're in that type of relationship and you're trying to navigate parenthood with a partner and presenting some sort of united front, but that's hard if you haven't necessarily talked about it beforehand.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I thought that they were great.
Yep, they were.
We mentioned how much fun Moombahton is. It's very fun.
Yeah, super colorful, very well. Again, here's one of the things that highlights one of the strengths of this movie, and on the flip side, kind of paints in a poorer light other movies that could be thought to potentially be similar. And I'm talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I felt like the different Spider-Verses, even if glimpsed briefly, still seemed to have more thought and more character to each individual Spider-Verse, or if all we were getting was a person from that universe, there still was such a distinctive presentation to that spider person.
Yeah.
And I just felt like it really played around with the idea of different universes. Getting back to Hobie, Spider-Punk. I mean, there's times where he kind of looks like the hand-drawn art from a Sex Pistols album or something, with the letters look like they're cut out like a ransom note type thing or things like that. Yeah.
And to bring it back to a thing we talked about with the last movie where Miles was, before Miles takes the leap, Miles is animated every 2 frames. And the other spider people are animated every 1 frame. And that's showing him not ready to move with the fluidity and the action necessary to be a spider person. They bring it back. Hobie is only animated every 3 frames. So he just looks out of sync with the other characters. Yeah. And it's such a cool little effect because he just, again, like you said, he has so much character and you can see it just in the way that he moves. And again, to compare it to Doctor Strange, I didn't give a shit about what world that evil Doctor Strange came from because he was just evil Doctor Strange, whatever.
Right.
I saw a Spider-Man who was a cat in this one and another one who was a Tyrannosaur. Tell me about Tyrannosaurus Spider-Man world.
Right?
Why is there a world where is a Tyrannosaurus? Why is the Spider-Man from the Insomniac games there? Yuri Lowenthal, you got 2 lines in this movie. Congrats, brother.
Well, and not only that, but at the same time they pull in, I mean, I loved the little glimpse of oh crap, I'm blanking on his name, but the
Donald
actor,
Glover?
Yes, Donald Glover.
Yep.
He, obviously in the Tom Holland Spider-Mans at one point he mentions his nephew Miles, and so now we've got Donald Glover here as the Prowler. Like, he's got a Prowler costume on. And
is he the Prowler from the Tom Holland universe? Maybe not. Maybe it's just a fun thing that they throw in there for fun. But having him be there in live action while everyone else is animated is really funny.
Yeah. I mean, just so many little things that they do like that where you just, again, we get back to what we talked about with the first one. And one of the many things that make both of these movies such standouts is the intelligence and the thoughtfulness with which the people making the movie across the board, writers, animators, the directors, everything, they think carefully about, well, what can we do visually? What can we do with music? What can we do with all these things to enhance the story? Everything just feels, again, so thoughtful.
Yeah.
And creative and interesting, and not as just we need to put in, this little scene of this here. It's like, no, this is going to be fun. And some people are going to catch this and some people aren't. There are going to be a lot of people who watch Spider-Verse, I think, who are going to be like, who the heck was that? And that's fine. But those who get it are going to love it.
The Spider Society scenes in particular are so rich with sight gags that the more you know about Spider-Man and Spider-Man comics and Spider-Man TV shows and all of that stuff, the more you get out of it. Ben Reilly is one of the Spider people we see from one of these universes. For those of you who might not know, Ben Reilly is a clone of Spider-Man from the Clone Saga in the 1990s when the Spider-Man comics got real messy bitchy. But he was the clone of Spider-Man who was Spider-Man for a while when Peter Parker was dead. Thought he was the original Peter Parker and maybe the Peter Parker was a clone, but then Peter Parker wasn't dead and he was still Ben Reilly. It's complicated. He's in this movie and he's all like, he's so tortured and it's what's his face from Brooklyn Nine-Nine and everything's terrible in his world, so he's got to be so dark.
It's so funny.
And Oscar Isaac as Miguel O'Hara is so menacing.
Oh yeah.
They did such a good job of I'm predisposed to like Spider-Man 2099 because when I was a child, I received Spider-Man 2099 issue number 1. And I was like, nice. What is this comic book? He looks so cool. Instead of saying real swear words, they say the word shock. He has weird, vampire teeth and pointy pads of his fingers. What? Who is this man? Who is this man, this Spider-Man? So I'm predisposed to like him, and he was great, but so scary. So scary.
Oh, yeah.
He's really good.
Well, and again, that kind of gets back to something we talked about with the first, and that is that across the board, the voice acting is fantastic. It's
so
just
good.
Phenomenal. It is so, so good.
So good. Jason Schwartzman comes in to play the Spot. And I think the Spot is kind of a dumb character, but could be used really interestingly, which is exactly what they do in this movie. He starts out as a really dumb character, and it's this is a pretty goofy power that's not very useful. Guess what? It becomes extremely scary and extremely useful by the end of the movie. By the end of the movie, this is a multiverse ending event, the fact that this person exists at all. So they do a really good job of taking a really goofy looking character and a really dumb power set and making them extremely extremely scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a fun movie. It's really fun. I'm very excited to see where it goes. I really, really hope they stick the landing. And I think that they will. I think they will.
I think so also. I mean, they've done such a good job with the first two, and again, really seem to have a good understanding of what makes these movies stand out and so enjoyable. So I think they will, and I'm hopeful. But yeah, I'm super excited, and it was great. If you've listened this far and you haven't seen it, I'm sorry that we spoiled it. You need to go watch it still. Do not think that you have understood this movie just because you heard us talk about it and talk about what happens. This is a movie to see. It's a movie to enjoy. And it's a movie to, honestly, again, it's one of those movies that it makes me happy that it exists.
And if you go see it, we'll keep getting movies like this.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Like, ultimately, art is great, but you've got to support great art if you want there to be more great art, because commerce is still tied to it. And especially for something like this, where it's got the backing of a huge company, it needs to make the money that a backing of a huge company makes. And thankfully they have. It's made good money. A. B. The sequel's basically done. It comes out in March. Like,
yeah.
It's like, it's in the bag. We're getting a sequel to this, and we don't have to worry about that. But like, if we want people like this to keep making movies like this, we need to go see movies like this.
Yeah.
So will I go see that new TMNT movie? Maybe, because the animation looks dope as hell.
Yes, it does.
Do I care about the Ninja Turtles? Not like I used to when I was a kid. Do I hold a lot of fondness for that first Ninja Turtles movie? Yes. Will I go see that new one because it looks like they learned all the right lessons from Spider-Verse while still putting their own spin on it? Maybe I will.
Yeah.
But we can wrap there. It's a really good movie. It's really fun. The cast is super great again. The inside jokes are so incredible. There's so many goofy things. There's a man who's a therapist, and he's talking to one of the spider people about how he was so sad when his uncle... Of course he was sad when his uncle died. He's a spider person. But there's a spider therapist there to talk to him about it.
Yeah.
It's great.
It really is.
Metro Spider was there. Sun Spider was there. The Spider-Man that's a car, whose name I can't remember, was there. Because why wouldn't you put the Spider-Man that's a car in there? Because, yes, there's a universe where everyone is cars and Spider-Man is a car.
You gotta have
goofy.
A Spider-Man.
It's fun. My only complaint is that we have not had Spider's Man on screen yet. So I hope in movie 3 we get Spider's Man. Do you know Spider's Man?
I do not know Spider's Man.
He's from a universe where what if a critical mass of spiders gained sentience and shared consciousness, and therefore they become a superhero who looks like Spider-Man, made up of billions of spiders.
That's kind of terrifying.
So when he needs to, they can turn into all just spiders and disappear and mess things up because there are millions of spiders. So hopefully Spider's Man will make an appearance. We'll see. Movie 3. It's in March. We don't have to wait too long.
Nope,
but
thank goodness.
Thank you all for listening. Go see the movie. It was fun. Going out to the movies is just nice. You know, I missed it during the COVID era. I just like going to see a movie on an enormous screen in a nice, like, mid-reclining seat, but it's nice enough. And just having a good time, just seeing a movie. So go see movies. That's what I'm saying.
Go see movies. And go see this movie.
Yeah, go see this movie. You don't need to go see Transformers Rise of the Beasts. You can wait till that's on streaming. Go see this one.
Very good. Well, until next time.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, until next time, I think that, you know, these are 2 movies in a row that honestly are some of the very best that we've watched for the podcast and just in general. Just so good. Just real bangers. Yep. All right. We will talk to you all in a couple of weeks. If you have any questions or comments you want to share with us, you can always email us at feedback@themiddleofculture.com. Leave a review. Leave some stars. We'll give you a kiss. And until next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye.